Wait a minute. I think I'm having the idea now. Such ever-readied white generational barbaric outbursts against a simple people captured, shipped off, enslaved, and then, even upon being emancipated, faced with the severest hate and segregation, could only undoubtedly have been the outcome of serious generational indoctrination, an indoctrination of hate, where even the cruel death or brutal murder of the hated is seen as victory or some grand accomplishment. And for what? What, of course, could be more irrational, dim, and barbaric in the world?
They came on the first day of January, and they did not stop burning and shooting and hanging and lynching until January the 7th.
June 1st, 1921, was the day Tulsa's Greenwood District, known as the Black Wall Street, was left in ashes. In a span of 24 hours, the wealthiest Black community in America was reduced to rubble. The Tulsa Massacre was a brutal reminder of the deadly consequences of racial hatred and economic envy. As the smoke cleared, the true extent of the devastation became clear. 35 city blocks destroyed, over 1,200 homes reduced to ash, and an estimated number of 300 lives lost.
What's the big deal about Tulsa? What makes Tulsa significant than any other city? Well, you've come to a place where not only a terrorist attack occurred, but that terrorist attack, there was no justice that followed that terrorist attack.
The survivors would pick up whatever piece was left of their lives forever changed by the trauma of that day, says Ruth Avery, a survivor of the Tulsa Massacre.
I never thought I'd see the day when my community would be destroyed. It was like the world was coming to an end.
The Tulsa Massacre was a tipping point in American history, exposing the dark underbelly of racism and oppression that continues to haunt us today. But Tulsa was not an isolated incident. From Rosewood to Elaine and so many other cities, the pattern of racial violence and destruction repeated itself. Tulsa was just the beginning. Across America, so many thriving Black cities and towns were targeted, destroyed, and erased from history. Their stories silenced, their legacies lost, until now. The destruction of Black cities and towns was a result of systemic racism, white supremacy, and economic envy. There were quite a number of these towns then, over 50 Black cities and towns, blooming with all kinds of development and amenities for the hardworking Black Americans who were living in them and endeavoring all they can to keep their communities habitable. These communities were thriving independently with successful businesses, schools, and cultural institutions. but the success of these cities was seen as a threat to white dominance. Instead of emulating from the good works they had noticed going on in these black towns, white Americans resorted to doing just what they're known to do best: destruction, chaos, and death. In those days, violence, intimidation, and forced displacement were the weapons used by white communities to maintain marginalization and racial control on blacks by every means. What it feels like to be black was nothing short of unearthly pain for our black ancestors in that era. However, before we go forward, kindly consider subscribing if you are yet to. Hit the thumb button in front of you and share with friends and families to keep spreading consciousness. Your support means a lot to us. Now let us dive into the events of this dark history of the thriving black cities that were destroyed by whites, starting with 1. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood District.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot.
During an emotional testimony on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, Fletcher, who is now 107, recalls her memories of the two-day massacre that left hundreds of black people dead. In the early 1900s, Greenwood was a beacon of black excellence, with over 300 businesses, including banks, hotels, and newspapers. Tulsa, Oklahoma, was founded in 1882, and by the early 1900s, it had become a thriving oil town. Greenwood was a self-sufficient community with its own schools, hospitals, and newspapers. It was a place where black people could thrive, free from the racial tensions of the time. But as Tulsa grew, so did racial tensions. The white residents had become increasingly resentful of Greenwood's success, although segregation laws had enforced separation between black and white communities. Despite segregation laws, racial tensions remained high, and in one occasion of racial clashes, whites had unleashed their pent-up fury against the African-American community, revealing deep-seated animosity and hostility. It all started on May 31, 1921, when a 19-year-old shoe shiner named Dick Rowland entered a Drexel building, an office located at 319 South Main Street in Tulsa. He needed to use a public bathroom, but because he was a black, segregation laws restricted him from using facilities located at the down part of the building, so he had to use the bathroom at the top. Getting there required taking the elevators, and the 19-year-old shoe shiner stepped into the elevator. On getting there, he met 17-year-old Sarah Page, a white lady who was working as the elevator operator. The chance encounter between the two individuals sparked a chain of events that would change the city forever. According to Page, Rowland grabbed at her arm and attempted.
Now, peace, my brothers and sisters. This is the Enemy's Public. I am Bro.Nasir. I hope everybody's enjoying their evening. I just want to, this right here is just a brief history of the past, of course, over 100 years ago. These people have always used their women as a pretense to act violently towards our people. Now, if you look at this woman right here, that they said the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre started from, this is where it stemmed from. A woman who looks like Teddy Roosevelt with a damn wig on. And they want us to believe that a 19-year-old will actually try to put his hands on this that we see on our screen sexually. Now, she looks like Teddy Roosevelt with a wig on. And they don't want to say to us that it's economic envy is why they try to go after our people. Now, if you look at what's going on today, it's a prime example of economic envy. Even if our people earn what we have, some people think that we don't deserve it, even if we work hard for it. And we are in times that we must bridge the gap and close the ranks. We have a common, open, and consistent enemy, a system that allows judges and governors to let those who commit crimes against us go unpunished. A system that if a person is arrested, tried, and convicted of a heinous crime against us, a judge or a governor can undermine and undo all that work that the people we elect to do a job to protect the people. Now, all of this happened, they say, because of her, and she lied. Now, she is, my sentiment is untouchable. And they want us to believe that all of this happened because of her.
Attempted to kiss her, prompting her to push him away and flee the elevator in fear. But Roland's version of events told a different story. He claimed to have simply tripped and stumbled into the elevator, denying any wrongdoing. As the news of the incident spread like wildfire, the white community seized upon Page's account, fueling racial tensions and outrage. The media sensationalized the story, portraying Roland as a criminal and Page as a victim. Some witnesses reported hearing Page scream and seeing Roland flee the scene, while others whispered that the encounter was consensual. The truth, however, remained elusive, lost in the chaos and destruction that followed. Knowing definitely well that the event might make him the target of an angry white mob, Roland fled to his mother's house in Greenwood for refuge. Unfortunately, the police located and arrested him. In no time, rumors that Roland will be lynched began spreading like wildfire, and by 7:30 p.m. on that same day, hundreds of residents were gathered outside the courthouse. At exactly 8:30 p.m., 3 men entered into the courthouse demanding that Roland be handed over to them. But McCullough, the newly elected local sheriff, sternly refused and sent.
Now, this is what the mobs used to do. If one of us was arrested, the lynch mob would come to the police station and they would take you from the police and go out and handle you how they will. Most of the time, the brother, the sister, or even the child was killed by the lynch mob. And the lynch mob today is, they try us in public opinion, and hopefully their sentiment is that a crooked judge will actually send us to prison for the rest of our life or have us on death row. Now, again, a cop that shoots a man dead in his driveway, which would happen like a year ago, an unarmed man, then plant a gun on him to justify and cover up the crime. He's found guilty and sent to prison, the cop is, then the judge decides to set him free. He was actually pardoned. The judge that killed the brother in his driveway is actually getting pardoned by a judge who's going to undermine the prosecution trying and convicting him. When a prosecutor go before the court, they say the people versus whoever the defendant is. And these governors and these judges totally undermine the system, but they tell us the system work, and they undermine it right in our face, and we don't hold them accountable.
sent the three men out. By 9:30 p.m., the crowd had swelled into thousands, and the sheriffs vastly outnumbered. It was about this time that a group of 50 to 60 armed black citizens arrived at the courthouse in order to support the sheriffs. And again, the sheriffs turned down their offer. Sadly, their arrival had prompted.
The sheriff turned down their offer because later on that day, the military arrived, and they didn't arrive to restore order. They arrived to fight with and behalf of the lynch mob. And that was a reason for them to tear down what we built. See, when we built something, we talking about closing the ranks and building our communities. What we really should be doing while we're building our community is increasing our ranks, because no matter how successful we are, how much land we acquire, we have to secure it. That is very essential. We have to secure whatever we acquire, or the same thing will happen. The same thing will happen. We have to have security. We have to be serious. Now, a white man would shoot one of us if we got in a car accident and came to their house and we needed help. They could see us visibly injured from a car accident, or we need help for whatever reason. They'll come to the door with their shotgun and shoot us dead for asking for help. Exactly, my brother Shank Rock. That's what Messenger Muhammad taught us, that we had to secure our land. We had to acquire our land, secure our land. And we have to be serious about standing and acting on behalf of our people.
Many of the white citizens to head home for their guns. At 10 p.m., a second group of black armed men arrived to support the sheriffs as well. But again, they were turned down. As they were leaving the courthouse, a white man approached one of the black armed men, calling him a racial slur, and at the same time trying to take his gun, thereby sparking an altercation.
That happens today. You see one of us with a gun, and some of us perpetuate the same old goofy stuff. Peace to my brother Ghetto Child Clinic. Let me run down the line before I continue. Peace to my brother Ghetto Child Clinic. Salute to you. Salute to my brother Shank Rock. Salute to my brother Executive Sessions. Salute to my brother Dre Cobb's Music. Salute to my brother Master of Self. Thank you all for tapping in. Thank everyone for joining me this evening. Now, there was an experiment that some young people did with the police just to show how biased the police is with people carrying guns, actual legal guns. A Caucasian young man walked past with an AR-15. The police didn't stop him. They stopped him. They didn't question him about why he had the gun. They admired the gun and asked the young man about the functionality of the gun, just admiring it. About an hour later, a young brother walked past with his. They jumped out the car and ordered him to the ground. Because the criteria and what they teach in the academy, the characteristics of a criminal is us. When the criminal is the one who's going to get their training to become law enforcement, the biggest criminals in this land right now is law enforcement, and those who, the legislative officers, the prosecutors, the city council, all of them are criminals. And guess who empower these criminals and pay these criminals? The taxpayers.
In an instant, the situation escalated. A single gunshot pierced the air, and chaos erupted. Panic and violence spread like wildfire, unleashing a maelstrom of gunfire, shouts, and screams.
Greetings to Owlette. Thanks for tapping in. I appreciate it.
Both sides began to fire, and the small group of black citizens was outnumbered 20-1. As a reason, this group of black citizens were forced to retreat towards their neighborhood, Greenwood, in an attempt to escape the violence and find safety. Unluckily, the gunfight followed them the whole way, thereby leading to massive killings of innocent black citizens. Calling the incident a Negro uprising, the local police deputized over 500 men, many of whom were members of the lynched mob. These new deputies were instructed to arm themselves and shoot any black they met on the street.
Now, when they went to the police headquarters to drag the brother out of the police headquarters and take him and lynch him, the chief was against it. When the white man tried to take the brother's gun and a fight started and they started getting their ass kicked, the police, the sheriff, deputized the same lynch mob and more people, up to 500 people, to massacre the people that was there fighting on behalf of the brother that they had at the police headquarters. And when they still was getting their ass kicked after that, they felt compelled to fly over Tulsa and drop bombs.
The violence spread throughout Tulsa's black neighborhood, Greenwood, with white mobs attacking homes, businesses, and churches. White pilots flew planes overhead, dropping incendiary bombs and shooting at black residents. Greenwood was destroyed, with the entire city blocks reduced to ashes, leaving thousands of black residents homeless and displaced. Greenwood was left in ruins. The Oklahoma National Guard was deployed to restore order, but not before the devastation was complete. Over the next 24 hours, the mob destroyed 35 city blocks, burned over 1,200 homes. Although official reports at the time glossed over the carnage, claiming only 36 lives lost, 26 blacks, 10 whites. But the Red Cross, witnessing the devastation firsthand, estimated a staggering 300 fatalities. The NAACP, fighting for justice, believed the true number lay between 150 to 200. In the end, it didn't matter what really happened in that elevator. The damage was done, the seeds of hatred and violence that had been sown, and the city of Tulsa would never be the same again. The violence was not merely a reaction to the elevator incident, but a manifestation of long-held racial hatred and fear, fueled by systemic oppression and discrimination.
Now, we need to understand that we say our ancestors speak to us and act on our behalf with energy. And our pop-pops and elders, grandmother, whether it's your pop-pop or your grandmother, they talk to us when they was here or on the ancestral realm. We need to understand that these people have ancestors also that garner their spirit. And some of these people are inherently the way they are. They're inherently the way they are, racist and corrupt to the core. Very manipulative and know how to get around passing a psychological evaluation to become a police officer. And when you see some of these audits on video, a lot of us, I know, scratch our head. It's like, how did this guy or this female even pass a psychological evaluation to become a cop? How? With their behavior, overly aggressive and overzealous, not to establish peace and maintain peace, but they want compliance. Even if their requests are unlawful, they want you to, be compliant and capitulate to what they ask you to do, even if it's unlawful, even if they know they are breaking the law, even if they're on camera breaking the law, they don't even care. Why? It's because of certain loopholes that they have within the department and within the law. That's why when you are approached by a cop, you have to ask the questions if you ask a question of a cop of why he stopped you, or you make him incriminate himself, because he can't have qualified immunity if you make him say he know that what he's doing is wrong. If you make him say that he know he violating your rights by how you speak to him, that he's going to incriminate himself, and then he won't have qualified immunity. We shouldn't get emotional when these people approach us. We should ask the correct questions, make him incriminate himself. So if he do violate your rights, it's all on camera and he can't say he didn't know better, because they're putting people out on the streets to patrol us. I'm not going to say without proper training, because the training that how they behave is the culture. The culture may not be consistent with departmental policy, but when they get with a FTO, a field training officer, the field training officer teach him the police culture, what they do as a police culture, which is not consistent with departmental policy. They tell you to forget about that, because it's their duty to intervene if they see a cop, a fellow officer, acting unbecoming of an officer, or being overly aggressive that's uncalled for. It's their duty to intervene. So far, the only people I've seen who intervened when police officers act overly aggressive were women. And some of them ended up losing their jobs. Some of them end up being grabbed by the throat and being hurt by a fellow officer, while other fellow officers standing right there witnessing it, when they should have arrested the cop that grabbed the female cop by the throat.
The Tulsa race riot still remains one of the darkest chapters in American history. 2. Rosewood, Florida.
The town of Rosewood was a small, predominantly black community not too far from Gainesville. It was destroyed at the hands of an angry racist mob. All that's left, their descendants, who continue to tell their stories.
It was almost like this picture perfect place.
On January 5th, 1923, a mob of over 200 white men attacked the black community in Rosewood, Florida, killing over 30 black women, men, and children, burning the town to the ground, and forcing all survivors to permanently flee Rosewood. This is what went down. On January 1st, 1923, in Sumner, Florida,
This is who they were hiring as police officers. People who knew who they were biased, knew they were racist, just like Sean Grayson. Sean Grayson was on 6 departments in 4 years. He ended up on the sheriff's department in Springfield, Illinois, and ended up killing a sister. 6 departments in 4 years, and none of his bad record followed him nowhere. He wouldn't follow orders, totally disobeyed direct orders that was given to him by his upper rank. He was a liability from the start. Yet he ended up killing a sister. Every last one of those departments that he went through, that he was fired from, should be sued, because they were supposed to pass the Sentinel. It's supposed to pass his record on to make sure that he don't be hired to or on another department. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to take his certification from him that would prevent him from being hired. But they didn't. They allowed him to hop from department to department till he became the ultimate liability. Somebody lost their life.
Young married white woman named Fannie Taylor claimed she had been assaulted by Jesse Hunter, a black man who had escaped a prison chain gang.
Look at the women that they say brothers attacked or sexually assaulted. These are women that they won't even touch, but they want us to believe that one of us touched them.
Gang, though there was no evidence against Mr. Hunter. Local white
Peace
men.
to my good brother, the realist McCoy. Good to see you in the chat, brother, as always.
And launched a manhunt in Rosewood, a nearby town of about 200 black people. On January 2nd, a mob of white men kidnapped, tortured, and lynched Sam Carter, a black craftsman from Rosewood, on the suspicion that he had helped Jesse Hunter escape. White mobs would continue to terrorize Rosewood searching for Mr. Hunter, and black residents would arm themselves in defense. Late on the night of January 4th, a white posse fired into the home of black Rosewood resident Sylvester Carrier, whom they suspected of harboring Mr. Hunter, and killed an elderly woman. A gunfight between Carrier and the mob would last into the early morning, killing people on both sides. Outraged that black residents had fought back, the posse left the scene to regroup and returned with more men. On January 5th, a mob of between 200 to 300 white men attacked Rosewood, killing an estimated 30 to 40 black men, women, and children on sight, and burning the town to the ground. Most black residents would later flee into the woods, while others fled by train to Gainesville, Florida, never to return. Survivors later recounted that Fannie Taylor had made false accusations against Jesse Hunter.
Not surprisingly, false accusation, just like the woman who made the false accusations against Emmett Till. They have always used their women as a proxy to do what they, their motive most of the time was jealousy and, economic envy. They didn't want to see us have what we have. We build our towns up, we make them beautiful. We establish ourselves as a community, and they look at their stuff and they see that we keep our communities better than they do. They're going to automatically have that economic envy, that envy of how our community is kept and how tight-knit it is. They find a way. And when the law enforcement, the police, and the city council are in cahoots with them, this is what we get. Again, they'll put these type of women up and say, this is who we tried to do something to. And they know they won't even touch these women.
Hunter to conceal her extramarital affair with a white man. Number 3, Washington, D.C. In the sweltering summer of 1919, Washington, D.C. was a city on edge. The Great War had ended, but the fight for equality and justice had only just begun. African-American soldiers, fresh from battling for democracy abroad.
Peace to my brother, Cuban Crisis. Thanks for tapping in, good brother. Salute to you.
Returned home to find themselves denied the same rights and respect they had fought for. Tension simmered, fueled by housing shortages, job competition, and the ever-present specter of racial prejudice. The city's streets were a powder keg, waiting for a spark to ignite the flames of violence. That spark came on July 20, 1919, when a white woman accused a black man of assault. White men, many in the armed forces, responded to the rumored arrest of a black man for the rape of a white woman.
See, they always use the same trick. They never change. Even to this day, they don't even change how they do things. They use the same tactics to this day. They'll use their white woman, or, they'll use the same tactics like try to criminalize a brother, or they are use one of us to infiltrate our organizations. The same exact tactics. I don't know how we don't see that coming 3 or 4 or 5 miles away.
With 4 days of mob violence against Black individuals and businesses, they rioted randomly, beating Black people on the street and pulling others off streetcars for attacks. When the police refused to intervene, the Black population fought back. The violence raged on for days. Sounds of gunfire, screams, and shattering glass filled the air as the city teetered on the brink of chaos. In the end, the riots left deep scars on the city and its people. The death toll mounted with at least 15 lives lost and over 150 injured, with property damage of over $100,000 to $200,000, approximately $1.5 million to $3 million in today's dollars. This left the streets littered with the remnants of shattered lives and broken dreams. Number 4, Colfax, Louisiana. On April 13, 1873, a white militia attacked the town of Colfax, Louisiana, killing an estimated 60 to 150 Black residents. The violence was sparked by a disputed gubernatorial election, with white Democrats seeking to overthrow the newly elected Republican government. The militia, mostly ex-Confederates, targeted the town's Black majority, who had been exercising their newfound voting rights. The attackers used...
Greetings to my sister Copper Goddess. Thanks for tapping in. Salute to you.
Cannons, guns, and fire to destroy the town, killing many Black residents, including women and children. Some were shot while trying to surrender, while others were burned alive in their homes. Despite the fact that the Colfax decimation made national headlines at the time, the incident was quickly forgotten. In 1921, local officials erected a memorial to the 3 white militia members who died. The inscription on the memorial called...
Peace to my brother Big Dog Philly OG. Thanks for tapping in, brother. Now, I hit that by mistake, but I'm gonna go to part 2. I'm not gonna play it all. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go to...
The envy and jealousy was beyond...
I'm gonna do the original, playlist that I wanted to present. I wanted to start off with this to give a pretense of what I wanted to speak about. That, the saga continues today. Bear with me. Let me find this playlist. It's corrupt to the core. We're gonna deal with the all called municipalities, so-called public servants that don't serve us, that fail to serve us. They are all corrupt to the core, which is why I say the enemy's public. Everyone who say that they are public servant, who's posted, that tax dollars pay to not serve us, they're our enemies. So-called public servants, they're the enemy. And we empower and we actually pay these tyrants to not serve us. And we're going to see how our brothers and sisters dealt with one of us who served to our detriment. Just because sometimes we get excited when we see one of us be elected to an office, because we have hope that this brother or this sister is going to do something for his own people. But when they get this office, they conduct business as usual. They do nothing for their own people. But when other people get these offices, they make sure they do something for their own people. But our people get these offices and turn their back on their own people. Now we're going to go over to Chicago to a city council meeting where these citizens gave the mayor, rightfully so, the business.
So it has already been determined that you don't follow the United States Constitution. And maybe that's perhaps because you're not a founding father and your name is not on the document. So perhaps if we show you something that your name is on, maybe you'll follow those rules. We got a rules of order and procedure, City Council, City of Chicago, for 2023 to 2027, with your name on it. However, we sit in here all the time and watch you violate our rights. We sit in here all the time and watch you allow City Council to violate our rights. Now we're gonna talk about this budget, about the strange things that's happening. Because again, your name was on this executive order of May 2023, this executive order for immigration, migrants, and refugee rights. You caused all this money to go to illegal immigrants, not Harold Washington. You gonna be held accountable for it. And we want a forensic audit of the money that was spent on illegal immigration. You all are trying to do everything but that, when in fact, that's where all the money went. So anything that you all pass is not genuine, it's not honest, because you're trying to cover up where our money actually went. Now, it's been some strange voting going on. Let's talk about the fact that Taliaferro and Lopez, Sergio Lopez, got extra money. Could it be because Byron Sergio Lopez wrote a letter on my behalf to help with my case, and so did Taliaferro? Could it be that they were told that they could get more votes if they blew my case? Whoa. Now, let's look at.
Now, both of these guys should be taken to the ethics committee and be disbarred, because if they go to the other side and play both sides of this, I'm certain that it's unethical and against the regulations as attorneys.
Alderman David Moore, who have been in here and listened to me talk about my probate all the time and haven't done anything. Could it be he planning a seminar with Lori and them, while at the same time selling me out because he's supposed to be getting a field house for his ward? We got something for you. Fridays, famous Friday, and we got another one. This is Chicago Flip Red. Chicago Red got you too. You got Chicago Red and you got Chicago Flip Red, and both of us getting that. So now, who's gonna be famous Friday? Pull this name real fast. Carlos Ramirez Rosa. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Tell it all.
However, your time has expired. Our next speaker is Sharon Abbott.
See, they tried to cut her off when she finally got on the road to revealing a lot. See this, they see how I would have done it. I would have gotten together with everybody there. And I know I have a certain time to speak, but the next person that come up will take over from where I left off so we can get it all out.
Brandon Johnson, first of all, I hate to break your heart. I didn't vote for you. I'm a lifelong conservative. Nevertheless, your job is to represent all of the people of Chicago and not your own personal interests. On May 15, 2020, you took your oath of office and solemnly swore to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that you would faithfully discharge the duties of the office of mayor to the best of your ability. The U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, states that the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a Republican form of government and shall protect each of these against invasion. The preamble of the U.S. Constitution states that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for the common defense. Likewise, the Illinois Constitution reiterates that the people formed our government with its primary role being to ensure domestic tranquility and provide for the common defense. Brandon Johnson, you have violated your oath of office. You have not supported the U.S. Constitution nor the Illinois Constitution. You have not protected the people of Chicago from invasion nor ensured domestic tranquility. You have also ignored the Declaration of Independence, which declares that governments.
Peace, honors to my brother Truth. Thanks for tapping in, brother. Salute to you.
Derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. No one appointed a monarch to rule over the people of Chicago. Rather, as mayor, your duty is to serve the public, and you are bound by the parameters of the Constitution only to act by the consent of the people. Members of City Council, you likewise took an oath of office to support the U.S. and Illinois Constitution. You are also bound by the parameters of the Constitution only to act by the consent of the people.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is David Mason.
We have to remember history, because the number one thing that we know for certain is that history always repeats itself. So, Mr. Johnson, I know that you can appreciate with me giving you a history lesson with you being a former social studies teacher from Elgin. Well, you plan on going back to the classroom anyway. That was the whole purpose with you taking a leave of absence, right? Well, besides the mental reason. I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that out loud. But let's go ahead and talk about history repeating itself. Let's talk about taxation. Chicago has a tax for everything: water tax, grocery tax, tourist tax, hotel tax, bag tax, liquor tax, cigarette tax, the highest sales tax in the country by far, parking tax, surcharge of downtown parking, property lease tax, and streaming tax. The only thing that you all don't have a tax for yet is oxygen tax. And the only reason why you don't have a tax for that just yet is because you ain't figured out how to.
You know, I don't like when we say that we know from history that history will repeat itself. And we know for certain that it would. And we don't prepare ourselves for it or do something to combat it. When we get the inclination, that history is about to repeat itself. Now, if we allow history to repeat itself, knowing what history was, whose damn fault is that?
How to do it yet. But let me not speak too soon, because you probably might actually think it's a good idea and you're going to try to write it down. So let's go ahead and talk about, let's not forget about the good old sugar tax. Y'all remember y'all used to back in 2016 and you go to your favorite grocery store and you buy your favorite 24 pack of pop? Well, you paying more taxes on that pop than what the actual cost of it is. What you didn't know is that your buddy Brandon Johnson voted for that sugar tax. So it's not a surprise that he wants to pour a $40 million line of credit and put the city in even more debt than what we already are with the $1.2 billion deficit. But it's your fault that because you gave half the money to illegals. Also, it's lazy government is what you call it. So let's not forget that we gotta watch these politics. And I was at that Board of Czar meeting, and Tom Homan said out of his mouth that it is illegal to harbor and conceal illegal aliens. So, like I told you before, that you ain't gonna blink, well, we ain't gonna flinch either. Now, I'm gonna tell you another thing. All you illegals, you ain't gonna have no Merry Christmas. You're gonna have a Merry Deportation Christmas.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Robert Thierry.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak. My name is Robert Thierry. In 2017, I became homeless and disabled. But this year, there was an October 7th attack on two of Chicago's homeless people. Mr. Paul Williams and David Swick were both executed for being homeless, and David Swick was also disabled. I was protesting because homeless lives matter. On November 14th, I was attacked by the owner of the JJ Fish. I have video footage on my cell phone. I did not fight back. They made a false report on me saying that I assaulted them. I was told I could not press charges because I was the assailant on the false report. So November 21st, I went to headquarters at a town hall meeting. And the next day, November 22nd, a detective was assigned. I kept calling him. I didn't get through to him till November 26th. I requested him to look at the video footage at Nikki's across the street from 7828. Actually, 7829 is Nikki's address. He said he would get back to me on Saturday. I didn't get back to him. I had to call him on December 2nd. And I sent him my video on my cell phone. And again, I requested him to look at the video footage at the Nikki's. But instead, he went to JJ Fish and called me on December 6th. He called me. He told me to go talk to the owner of Nikki's, that the owner wants to make amends with me. And I told him, no, I wasn't going to do that. He then said, if you don't drop the charges against him, then I will arrest you for harassing the owner of JJ Fish. I said, no, I want to press charges. I want to go order of protection on him. He hung up the phone on me. JJ Fish shows a history of total disregard for human life and violence against a disabled citizen of Chicago. Please look into this matter and shut down JJ Fish at 7828 Southwestern Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is the Chicago Conservative.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
You spent over $574 million on illegal immigrants here in Chicago, Illinois since 2022. Now, you still feel like you have to harbor these illegals, which is not a good idea. And in my personal opinion, I don't think it's a good idea to challenge Tom Homan on this because he's trying to clean up our cities, Mr. Brandon Johnson. Now, let me just remind everybody here that Brandon Johnson is terrible with the budget. How is this $40 million credit line is going to work exactly? Because the key word is credit. So how much will we be using from this $40 million? And the real question is, how much will we be paying back? Now, you want to sit here, you in campaign funds on haircuts and makeup. So I got an early Christmas present for you, Brandon Johnson. This is some makeup for you right here. You got some rouge, you got the makeup brush right there, so you can save this people some money, for crying out loud. Now, let me tell you people, I'm going to be serious here. We need
Can you put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. They sabotage my stream again. Thank you. Appreciate it.
need to start voting different in these cities like New York and Chicago. Stop voting these people in. It's not Democrat versus Republican anymore. It is populist versus establishment. It is the populist versus the establishment. Stop letting them trick you into the race baiting when it comes to Brandon Johnson. Oh, black people need help too. Trump want to hurt black people. What are you talking about? We're legal here. We are legal. Now, I'm trying to be nice about this. And Mr. Brandon Johnson, I do respect you in a little bit of way because you're trying the best that you can. I really want to believe that. But listen, man, you got a 14% approval rating. So the people is looking like they're telling you that you're fired, man. So I'm just humbly asking you, Brandon Johnson, to please come up with something that's reasonable by the end of this year, because I don't want to see a government shutdown, Mr. Brandon Johnson. Please do your job. I don't care if you're black. Chicago needs to get rid of DEI. I don't care if you're black. Can you do the job? Can you do the job, Mr. Brandon Johnson? And it's looking like you can't do the job. So please don't fail us.
Thank you very much for your comments. Your Honor, there are no further speakers who have timely signed up for the public comment period.
Farewell. Thank you. Okay. Sergeant at Arms, please restore order.
We will not accept the fascist comparison. We refuse to let our immigrant brothers and sisters be rounded up in hard law.
Now, when you talk about protest, when you make whoever has the gavel in his hand or her hand, that's a protest. If you're not interrupting business as usual, and somebody's telling you something that that you can and cannot do, or giving you a route on in which how you can protest, you're not protesting. Protesting is interrupting business as usual. Civil disobedience, meaning that you're not going to do a damn thing that they ask you to do.
Sergeant at Arms, please remove these individuals from the chambers.
Well, I'll say it like this. They're not conducting no business on behalf of the people anyway. So why allow them to proceed with their lack of business?
Thank you. This chamber will come back to order. Thank you very much. Members of the public, please. Members of the public, if you wish to stay in the chambers, please sit down and return the order. Members of the public, if you wish to remain in the chambers, thank you very much. Though there are...
Now I want to go to a video courtesy of Dr. Rashard Ritchie, what I was speaking about earlier.
Update, we told you this would happen. A cop who was convicted of killing an innocent black man, convicted by a court of law, a jury. Prosecutor brought the charges. Grand jury indicted. Governor says, just feel like, he should go home. Put it up full mass. Missouri GOP Governor Mike Parson commuted the prison sentence of a cop 1 year after he started serving. He was convicted in 2021 of killing a 26-year-old black male named Cameron Lamb as he backed into his garage. The cop, D. Val Canary, who is a white male, was in fact found guilty of second-degree murder. Involuntary manslaughter was the exact charge. And armed criminal action in Lamb's 2019 death. It actually marked the first time a Kansas City police officer was convicted for killing a black man, set a precedent. So the cop and his partner were responding to an alleged physical confrontation between Lamb and his girlfriend. Lamb had been chasing the woman in his red pickup, according to the allegation, but returned home after receiving a phone call from his roommate. The officers were waiting for him, guns drawn, though they had not secured a warrant at all. Lamb was backing down his own driveway when the cops, dressed in plain clothes, pounced. Within 9 seconds.
Peace to my brother, Hurricane JW. Salute to you, brother. Thanks for tapping in.
He would be shot dead. The cop alleged the victim had pointed a handgun at his partner, but evidence introduced at trial revealed that he, in fact, planted the weapon.
Now, this goes back to what I said earlier. These are the type of people they hire as police officers, and these are the type of people who pass the bar to become judges, prosecutors, all the way up to the governor's office. These are the type of people who will consider themselves public servants, but we need to understand what part of the public these people are serving, not us. We need to, again, bridge the gap between us and our young people and close our ranks. We don't need a civil war between brothers from the South and brothers from the North and out West. That right there is counterproductive. And when you're separated, they can get you by one by one. Understand that. When we're separated from each other, going back and forth with each other, they can get us all one by one. Our unity, a wise man once told me, our unity is more powerful than anything they can bring against us, which is why they tried to keep us separated. Which is why they would report a turf war or brothers going after each other. They will over-report that. But the minute you all come together and decide that you're not going to harm each other or kill each other no more, that don't get the massive, response. That don't get all the media footage that us going after each other gets. Peace to my brother Charles Johnson. Thanks for tapping in.
Now, if you didn't think he was a criminal prior, the cop is definitely a criminal now, right? Kills a man in cold blood, waits for him at his home, wears plain clothes.
What kills me is when cops do something and a judge would say he don't have any priors. Of course, he or she don't have any priors, because if they did, perhaps they wouldn't even become a cop. But if they do something to break the law, as law enforcement, they should be punished even worse than somebody who's not law enforcement. At least law enforcement have some type of knowledge of the law. Most of them are ignorant as hell to the law, but they went through that bullshit training. And for them to wear the badge, the rinky-dink costume, and break the law in it, they should be punished worse.
Then he plants evidence in order to cover up the murder. His partner becomes a recruited co-conspirator in this criminal activity. The presiding judge, Judge Young, said the cop and his partner, the officer with him, needlessly escalated the situation. The cop his release was not a surprise. We've reported on it here at Indisputable that it was coming. Back in September, the governor told a Kansas City radio station that the case against the 45-year-old cop had been politicized by an overzealous prosecutor. The man planted a gun. So why do you have an extra gun at work anyway?
Why wouldn't a prosecutor who see a cop being corrupt know emphatically that he planted a gun on a man to justify murdering him? Why wouldn't the prosecution be overzealous to try and convict such a person? Anyone should be overzealous trying to make sure justice comes to that man's family and justice comes to the cop who did it, because justice is a reward or penalty. So justice would be this cop going to jail. That's the penalty side of justice. And him going to jail would be justice to that man's family who he murdered.
Why do you have an extra gun? Because you're about that life, sir. You're a corrupt cop. And if Parson had not freed the killing cop, his successor, the man that's about to be governor, who takes office next month, said, listen, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. So it's going to get done one way or the other. Put him up.
And guess what? These are the type of people that elect these governors, these judges. They elect these people that serve to their detriment. Now, that judge or governor, if he does this, he should not be able to go to and from work in peace. It should be massive protests every single day that he cannot go to and from work in peace without having a migraine headache every damn day.
Now he will be released from prison. Parson decided against the pardon community sentence. Instead, the guy who's taken over can just give him a pardon which will likely happen. It's an important distinction. According to the Missouri Department of Corrections, a full pardon, while not removing the conviction from the individual's criminal record, does restore all rights of citizenship and strips any punishment accompanying the conviction. Those consequences remain in a commutation, which only shortens the sentence. The terms of the parole prohibit him from possessing firearms or traveling out of the state without permission.
Salute to my good brother Marco Power. Thanks for tapping in, good brother. Now, we need to understand that this system is not broken. Those of us who say that need to stop saying that the system is broken. The system is a well-oiled machine that works and not in our favor. So we need to understand it's not broke. It's working accordingly. See, we need to develop and establish our own system on how we do things. If we'll give you a chance to give us justice, again, justice is a reward or penalty. And if you don't give us justice, we gotta serve justice. It's a difference between giving justice and serving justice. And we have to put them, at the fork in the road. Which one you going to give? You're going to give us justice, or do we have to serve justice? Because we're not going to stand idly by and watch our people get murdered. And that's it. We depend on the perpetrator's brother to do something about his behavior. We have to stop that.
Pardon, however, he could resume working as a police officer, but the commutation prevents.
Now, they said he could resume working as a police officer. Now, if this man who murdered this brother would be so, condescending to take that job back and patrol the city that he committed this offense in, my sentiment is he should be scared to take the job back. He should be scared to take the job back. But there's no consequences sometimes for these bastards murdering our children. They don't fear no consequence. Why? When all we do is march, cry, beg them, and then we chill until the next episode. We got to stop that.
It's him from doing so. Now, what is this story really about? It's not about the cop. Ironically, even though it is about Mr. Lamb, it is not about Mr. Lamb. It is about that one man, but it's also about many men or people. What they're telling everyone is they do not value the Black family and the Black community that the Black man is produced from.
This is why I say we must have all these values. We must value our lives and protect our lives. We must not value anyone who is aggressing us violently for our own lives or our loved ones' lives. We should value ourselves and our loved ones more than anybody. And if anybody come in away with that or try to do us harm, you know the rest.
So they will release a murdering cop because of their devaluation of the person he murdered. That is what this story is about. And that is the saddest thing. And that's why it takes people like you, people like Sharon and others, to continue to push the agenda of progress and provide light to darkness.
Now we're going to go to corrupt judges and lawyers. The whole system is corrupt. All of them. The whole system is corrupt to the core.
Well, a judge accused of misconduct on the bench is now off a disputed case, and criminal charges could be filed.
Campbell County Sessions Court Judge Amanda Salmons is at the center of a growing controversy, accused of overstepping her authority by attorneys and even another judge.
One woman has been appealing what she calls unfair treatment by Judge Salmons, saying her charges were illegally changed.
Sessions Judge Amanda Salmons facing 4 counts of official misconduct after investigators say she intentionally tried to harm 3 women. The TBI has been looking into rulings Salmons made during September of 2014 to January of last year. Investigators developing information Salmons exceeded her official power as a General Sessions Court judge.
This is a copy of the 15-page indictment against Judge Amanda Salmons. Now, it outlines her charges as well as her interim suspension. After the arraignment today, I went up to her attorney and asked if he would give an interview or a statement, but he declined both.
Amanda Salmons ran for office in 2014, calling herself a blue-eyed assassin with a low tolerance for foolishness. Since then, she's presided over many cases in Sessions Court, but today she was the subject of a court proceeding, specifically her conduct in the case of Krista Smith.
The issue before this court is whether or not the General Sessions Court should be recused from the case.
Officers pulled Smith over in January because her children were not wearing seatbelts. She was arrested and charged with child endangerment.
In a criminal courtroom, Judge Amanda Salmons clasped her hands. She's facing 4 Class E felony charges of official misconduct.
And will your client enter a plea at this time? She will, Your Honor. And what is that? That plea is not guilty to all charges.
The indictment speaks for itself. I don't really want to comment beyond that. Judge Salmons is entitled to a fair trial, so I don't want to do anything that would prejudice her.
It will be a jury trial set to begin November 1st.
What we've presented is what we've investigated. I'll just leave it at that.
Our judicial process, it is not the judge's role to decide what a charge should be, whether a charge is sufficient.
Because of that, Smith's attorneys asked for Salmons to remove herself from the case. She refused, but today, criminal court judge Shane Sexton ruled that she must, noting the district attorney's conference had asked for an independent investigation of Salmons into possible criminal conduct.
Months ago, Judge Salmons was ruling on Scarlett the puppy's case, found at death's door with a severe case of mange.
Scarlett did not receive justice from Judge Salmons.
At the time, Scarlett's owners were facing animal cruelty charges, but those were dismissed. Judge Salmons deciding there wasn't probable cause.
I was shocked, actually, because to me, as a layperson, it seemed like a very cut and dry case.
In the meantime, Salmons can't preside over a court, issue warrants, or any other judicial until the Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct says otherwise.
And we are told by the District Attorney General a Class E felony for someone with no record is 1 to 2 years in jail, though the total range is dependent on criminal history.
Now, we're going to move over to Georgia. Corruption is all over the United States, not in one area of the United States.
Tonight, the massive legal win for President-elect Trump in his Georgia election
Now, Donald Trump was tried and convicted, of 34 felonies. This is what let us know that how corrupt the government is, and how much of a cesspool the whole entire government is on every level. A cesspool. A man can get tried and convicted of felonies and still have felonies pending. And when he go up for sentencing after being convicted, a judge in the state of New York say he's going to postpone his sentencing for 4 years. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds, to postpone someone's sentencing for 4 years, giving him a chance to run the country when he should have been disqualified from running when he was convicted? And he still have or had, I don't know what's going to come of that. This lets us know that you and I are the pawns in the game. And these people can go and change the rules. They could just redact stuff and just change the rules to suit themselves as they go. As they go. Now, he had charges in Georgia. And for them to get the desired results that they want concerning Donald Trump, they disqualified Fani Willis from the Trump Georgia election case. They disqualified her. And all the work that Letitia James did over in New York, they always say that it's political when politicians are charged, tried, and convicted. Of course it's political. You're a damn politician. Of course it is. Now, Letitia James was elected. That's a form of politics. But just because Letitia James was elected, it don't make, if she go after a corrupt politician, that don't make the charges and her motives political. See, that's the word play and the games these people play. But if it was you and I, you think one of us would go before a judge in the state of New York? He said, well, I'll see you in 4 years, giving you 4 years of your life back to go do wherever you will, then come back and see me in 4 years. This lets us know that this entire government is corrupt to the core. Every facet of the government.
Interference case, a Georgia appeals court kicking District Attorney Fani Willis off the case over the appearance of a conflict of interest due to her relationship with the special prosecutor in the investigation.
I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
The ruling, the latest twist in a winding tale of money, romance, and allegations of election interference. Willis forced to acknowledge a relationship she had.
See, all these people are doing this because they don't want to be on the wrong side of Donald Trump, because he was elected and they don't want to date. So what they're doing is moving things around because they don't want to be on the wrong side of Donald Trump, which is why, which what explains the behavior of Eric Adams in New York. Now he's speaking the same language Donald Trump is speaking concerning illegal immigrants, when earlier he didn't have that type of sentiment. He wanted to welcome them all. Welcome them all. Peace to my brother, Brown's Flat Power God. Thanks for tapping in. Now, again, all of this is nasty work. I don't even think you can become a politician if you're not corrupt, if you're not nasty. You have to be nasty. You have to be corrupt to be a politician.
she had with the special prosecutor she appointed to the case, Nathan Wade, and facing allegations she benefited from the relationship by accompanying him on lavish trips funded by payments from her office. Willis taking.
Now, this is what you call under the belt, nasty, all in somebody's private life because they're doing a job. This right here shouldn't concern nobody. What they're trying to put out in the public shouldn't concern nobody. And I don't understand how it's a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest would be defense and the prosecution being involved. That would be a conflict of interest, which happens very often. But this right here is not a conflict of interest.
Taking the stand herself in an explosive disqualification hearing.
I don't need anything from a man. A man is not a plan. A man is a companion. And so there was tension always in our relationship.
Insisting the two split costs and that she repaid him for many expenses, but always in cash.
You never wrote him a check?
Ma'am, I don't have checks.
You don't have a single solitary deposit slip to corroborate or support any of your allegations that you were paid by Mrs. Willis in cash, do you?
No, sir.
Not a single solitary one.
Not a one.
Willis's testimony about her relationship with Wade, at times unusual.
Mr. Wade is used to women that, as he told me one time, the only thing a woman can do for him is make him a sandwich.
Willis's testimony about her relationship with Wade recalled birthday celebrations and trips they shared.
I spent $900 on each of our tickets to go to Belize. They would pair champagne, chocolate, and caviar. I did 50 big, very big.
But other combative moments earning her this rebuke from the judge.
It's going to be my first time out to caution. We have to listen to the questions as asked. And if this happens again and again, I'm going to have no choice but to strike your testimony.
Judge Scott McAfee ultimately decided to allow Willis to stay on the case, despite what he called a tremendous lapse in judgment, saying that although there was an appearance of a conflict, the defense did not.
He did that because he was afraid. Hold on.
President Biden under scrutiny after commuting.
Let me go back to that. He did that because he was afraid that what Donald Trump would do. Nobody wants to get on. Nobody wants to get on the bad side of Donald Trump. Nobody. He's elected now and capable of doing a lot of damage to people, especially having the childish, vindictive ass mentality that he has. He's very vindictive. He acts like a child. So any and everybody who was doing certain things, they're changing their sentiment in their mind and they're moving things around because they don't want to be on the wrong side of Donald Trump.
780 votes, which is one more than we have because we won the state.
The indictment leading to a stunning moment in American history, the first mugshot of a former president. Trump joined by 18 co-defendants, a constellation of election attorneys and former administration officials who Willis said conspired to pull off the election heist.
She's been exposed. I can't imagine they can continue on with that case.
Willis's office plans to appeal this new decision to the Georgia Supreme Court. But if Willis remains off the case, a prosecutor from a different county may pick up the prosecution. That process could be lengthy to revive a case now on life support.
Vaughn Hilliard joins us once.
And that's their very motive for doing this, to put the case on life support. Just like in New York, the prosecution dropped the more severe charge to set it up so they can drop the lesser charge, and Daniel Penny walked from killing the brother, from choking the brother, Jordan Neely, on the train in New York. This is the games that they play. And just because, I'm going to say this again, just because people who look like us get these jobs, they're elected, that don't mean they're going to serve us. Most of the time, they conduct business as usual. But when Marilyn Mosby stood on that rostrum in Baltimore and said to her people that she hear our cries and she's going to seek justice for Freddie Gray, you seen what they did to her after that. You seen what they did to her after that. So when people get these jobs, we need to rally around these people to assure them of their safety, that we're going to back them so they can do their jobs, like the brother Olu Stevens over in Louisville, who sent the brother Kenneth Walker home when Louisville PD tried to arrest him and charge him for shooting at them when they was breaking in their home. You have a right to shoot at you when you're breaking in their home unannounced, and blaming him for the death of his own girl when they shot him. Olu Stevens was a benevolent judge and said, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to charge him with this. You shot his girl. You broke into his home. There was no warrant for you to walk in, to go into that home. You tried to break into those people's home. Of course, he's going to protect this woman. He shot at them, and they ultimately shot her, returning fire, shooting indiscriminately, not caring, not knowing who they hit.
Once again from West Palm Beach, Florida. So Vaughn, as this case sort of winds through the legal system, as you alluded to there at the end of your report, have we heard from President-elect Trump and his team about this ruling from the appeals court?
Yeah, absolutely right, brother Marco Power. Her own husband sold her out. That's why it's going to be a place in the near future for weak sellout ass men. It's going to be a place for them. I'm not going to say where, but it's going to be a place. It's going to be very uncomfortable for them, though. I'll just give you a clue. Their arms will be folded. Put it that way.
We have heard from a spokesman for the now president-elect who said that on November 5th, American voters made their decision and called for the end of, as the spokesman put it, the end of political prosecutions. Of course, we'll wait to see whether the Georgia Supreme Court ultimately puts the district attorney, Fani Willis, back on this case. But for now, this is another legal victory for Donald Trump, his team, and a setback for those who sought to hold Donald Trump accountable for what they said was election interference dating back to the 2020 campaign. Tom?
All right, Vaughn Hilliard, we thank you for that. For more on what this means for the election fraud case against President-elect Trump.
Now we're going to go to Sleepy Joe. Not Sloppy Joe. We're going to go to Sleepy Joe. I'll deal with him later.
President Biden under scrutiny after commuting a former Pennsylvania judge who was convicted of funneling juveniles for millions of dollars in kickbacks. Her son, our next guest, was caught up in the so-called Kids for Cash scheme and joins us right now. Sandy Fonzo is with us from Pennsylvania. Sandy, good morning to you.
Now, this judge, I did a stream on him probably like earlier in the year or last year sometime. This judge was getting kickbacks in the millions for sending children to jail. He's getting 20 and up to 30, 40, 50, $60,000 a pop per child just to send them to jail. in private prisons. He was sending them there for minor offenses. He sent some children to jail for watching the fight outside the school. None of the adults got in trouble for not breaking it up. But if you was there and you watched the fight, that judge sent you to jail for that. And Biden is going to give him a pardon.
Good morning.
Sandy, tell us a little bit about when you saw that this judge who was convicted for essentially sending kids to jail longer so that the prison, the private facilities could make more money. When you heard that Joe Biden pardoned this guy, commuted this guy's sentence, what did you think?
I was actually working, so I was driving, and my phone started blowing up. Everybody messaging me and calling me. I had no service for most of that day, so it kind of just hit me. I was filled with every kind of emotion, hurt, defeat. Now that I've had more time to process it, it's more of anger.
Yeah.
And just, a whole, it's just this is very deeply upsetting and personal.
It is personal because your son, this guy sentenced your son to this private prison system. And the Washington Post has got an item today, and they describe what was going on. They write, to maximize the payout, they often gave kids the harshest possible sentence. Young people who were first-time offenders and probably should have received a warning or community service would end up locked up.
Now, let me tell you something. The people should not allow law enforcement and lawmakers, we shouldn't allow them to tell us anything about the law. They, from now on, should not be allowed to say what the law is, what's unlawful, or stand before us as a standard bearer of law and order. How could any of them be able to establish and maintain law and order when the entire system and those who are employed by the system are unlawful? We shouldn't respect anything that they attempt to say to us. Now, the legislative body, they meet on Capitol Hill and pass laws that none of them intend to adhere to themselves. They're a bunch of lawless, self-righteous hypocrites that we empowered against ourselves.
Some were younger than 13. What the judges did caused tremendous harm to thousands of young people and their families. One young man died by suicide. Many youth became depressed and dropped out of school. The one young man is your son, Eddie. Eddie, explain what happened.
Eddie was, he was a good kid. He was, a wrestler in high school. He had his whole life ahead of him. He did nothing more than any other kids at that age do. He was at an underage drinking party, and he got caught, and he went in front of this judge. He was placed in our local juvenile detention center, and he was.
That's not an offense to send a child to jail. And this judge was, he commuted his sentence, and he's going to let him go. He's going to walk.
Was there for approximately 1 month, and in that time, I was speaking with all of them, and it was to teach them a lesson, to get them back on track. And
exactly, P. Moses, we need our own system.
When he came back in front of the judge, I had letters from teachers, from his wrestling coaches, of my son's character. He wanted nothing more to just get back home and back to his life, and that didn't happen. He was sent to this facility, and God knows what happened in that facility, because when my son did come out, it was 8 months at that time, I believe. He was not the same person. He was pent up with anger and bitter for all the wrong.
Salute to my good brother, Talk Your Talk Media. Vegan, salute to you, comrade.
Would not accept any kind of counseling. He didn't want to look you in the eye. I don't know, and I can't imagine, and I try to not think about what happened to him in that facility, but he never recovered from it. We were fighting this, and you know, these judges just had control. They had all the power, and nobody could say anything. Nobody could step up. I mean, there was a judge, Ann Lakuta, in our courthouse, and when she tried to step up, she was ousted. She was thrown out. Everybody was afraid. You know, these judges just had power, and when they shut down that local, our community detention center, against, you know, all the recommendations of our city board members, they built their own for-profit juvenile detention center, and this Conahan was president judge. And when that
My exact sentiment is judges have entirely too much power. And it's crazy how if you go before a judge, your day is going to go according to how his punk ass feel. If he had a bad attitude that day, he can and will come and take it out on everybody in that damn courtroom. I've seen it several times. They hold you in contempt for speaking your mind and being a man, speaking to you reckless, telling you to shut up. And then when you speak to him like a man, he gonna be a punk and exercise power against you and hold you in contempt. But these are the people they expect us to call them your honor when they haven't done a damn thing honorable. But people address them as your honor. They have too much power. I say abolish the whole damn thing. Scrap it. It's worthless.
happened, he appointed Chivarella as the juvenile judge, and these kids were just funneled in and to keep these beds filled. And this went on for years, and until, you know, the money was seen, that's when the feds finally stepped in and all this, you know, came out.
Sandy, it sounds like your son should have gotten a warning or community service, but instead wound up going through the system and wound up committing suicide. You blame the judges for your child's death.
He ruined my.
The judge is responsible for that. Everybody who had took part in sending this young man to jail is responsible for him doing the unthinkable.
Son's life, my life, multiple lives. There's so many kids that have lost their life, not just my son. You know, one of the boys that was 8, Charlie, that's actually in the documentary with us and went around and spoke out about this. He has lost his life since. There's so many kids that are still struggling. I've helped kids get out that got wrapped up in the system that were in Yeah, I mean, it's just.
It's inexplicable. Sandy, what is your message to?
Peace, brother. Do a mic check. Do a mic check real quick.
Yeah, what's up?
Peace. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Okay. If you want to add on, let me know. I'll stop the video if you want to say something now.
Oh yeah, I want to say something real quick. I'm early 30s, Army veteran, just got out 2 years ago, and I got and I'm Black American like you, and I was this happened in Florida. I was looking for a house in Florida, and then I went through a speed trap it's called Waldo, Florida, right? In North Florida, right? And a cop gave me a ticket, and it was just I was railroading court over a ticket. So the whole court system is just corrupt to the core. So I'm just totally just co-signing and agreeing with you.
Indeed, those speed traps are terrible because it's a spot in New Jersey where you go up, and I think it's 35 miles an hour, and the next block it goes down just that fast. The next block is 25 miles an hour, and you see the police just sitting there waiting for somebody. Just imagine, it tells you to speed up just to slow down the next block, and then they pull you over and give you a ticket.
That's exactly what happened to me, because in Florida, there's a stretch of highway going to Gainesville from Waldo, and the military base I stayed on, where I stayed there for cheap, for only $20 a night. So it's really great to stay there. But then there's a speed trap only 20 minutes away from there. And so it goes from 60 to 45 in a few feet, just like you're talking about. You said up there in Jersey, right? Same thing in Florida. And then the cop is waiting right there and pulls you over immediately and puts on his blue lights. And
exactly. And give you a ticket. And what's crazy about that, I've seen several videos where, military personnel is not even respected by them. And and they're defending the liberties that these dudes enjoy, and they don't even respect that.
they don't. I have disabled veteran plates, and the cop didn't give me any type of break. He treated me like a criminal. He said I had a legal gun on me. In Florida, you can have any non-felon can have a gun. Concealed carry is totally legal now in Florida with no license. So I was at the time. Now I have gym pants where it holds up the gun better. At the time, I had cheap gym pants on, and my gun was sagging because he gives me this order to step out the car. And it's like, oh, keep your hands where I can see them because I see you have a gun on you, but now you don't need a permit no more. So then I'm like, okay. And then he makes me sit there and writes a BS ticket. He's like, I caught you going 80. Is that anything he says? I wasn't going 80. And then he just like, well, I caught you going 80. And he just totally talks to you like you're, like a punk, and doesn't respect you at all. And this was an old white one, but I've had experience with bad black ones too. So
Definitely. I mean, look, it's business as usual with them. They don't care. And sometimes they'll treat you worse.
yeah,
Sometimes
exactly. The Uncle Tom officers, they're even worse than the white ones a lot sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the wannabe honorary white supremacist is worse than sometimes the white supremacist. And a wannabe is always worse than the real thing because they're overzealous to be that. And we think when we see them step out the car, we think we are encountering a friendly, and that be the one who do it to you.
Exactly. That's what happened to me late last year. A black officer wrote me a ticket for a legal gun because the permit my permit was still in the mail for a gun permit, and totally had no criminal record. So the Uncle Tomism, and they have ticket. That's why I explained to a guy. He used to be a cop, and I explained to him, I was like, man, he was a cop, just courtroom security, but never was a beat cop. I said, dude, they have quotas and they do not care. It's like saying there's a good Nazi or a good Confederate soldier. No such thing, because they have to follow the orders they're given from the commissioner, sheriff, or chief, or whoever, right? They have to follow those orders, just like the military. You have to follow those orders or you're punished. So I don't know what people are talking about. There's good cops. I don't know what they're talking about.
Nah, you got to show me them. I mean, you got to show me them.
And the judges and the cops phone you into the prison system, or the ticket, give you a ticket, or phone you in the prison system. And the judges are just totally complicit with the cops, and they go right around with the cop backs up the judge backs up the cop.
Exactly. And And when they present the case, depending on how the situation goes, sometimes they have a mediator, sometimes you have to go actually to court. When they present the case, they always say the people versus whoever the defendant is. Okay, if you are representing the people, you're not supposed to be in cahoots with the police, but that is most case scenario. As a matter of fact, all case scenario that they're in cahoots with the prosecution, trying to road tie a brother or sister or a citizen altogether to the railroad tracks. That's their game. And God forbid if it's in a poor city where they need money, when we drive through, that's money to them. Because they're not going to allow you to leave. They want their money right now if they give you a ticket. If you're out of state, or you're going to pay them now.
Right. Well, they're road pirates. That's why I call them road pirates. And because my plates were in a neighboring state, and I'm moving though I'm in the process of moving to Florida. I went to another state. I was 2 states away, right, from another place. So they're targeting people with out of state plates is what they target.
Exactly.
And all these people that I follow these guys and I just laugh at them. All these guys are talking about, oh, the Constitution says we have the right to travel without plates and whatever. I was like, well, you're going to be impounded and put in jail before you even, and you can explain the Constitution to these cops all you want to and to the judge, and you ain't going to get nowhere. So,
but you know what though? If enough of us stood up together, see, when we leave somebody out to dry like that, they're going to do it. But if we let them know that we're coming, all of us, regardless of people is coming, and you're not just going to do that to people, they'll stand down. They'll have no choice but to stand down. They have no choice. But our lack of unity is our problem. Because, we don't have as I said yesterday, I forgot who program it was on, but we don't have no nervous system between us. We don't feel each other's pain. But when it happened to one of us, we expect people to rally around us, to be with us and comfort us, when we should have been doing all along with each other. It seems as if to me that we're waiting our turn to be victims when we should be like, no, you're not going to do that to my brother. Or I'm not going to, I don't want to see nobody mistreated, put it that way. But in particular, my people.
Exactly. You want, it's like the original Black Panther said, all power to the people. You want everyone to have civil rights, not to be violated. But then if they turn out to be a scumbag, of course, due process of law, but not just violate people's rights without even any due process. But, I have a friend of mine, and he calls the Constitution a con job because you got to be following. The Constitution is a piece of paper, like George Bush said, because it doesn't protect our rights. We have to, but it's like the cartoon movie of Bugs Life I used to see as a kid, right? Where they have the grasshopper said, what if one ant stands up to us? And then the grasshopper says, that ain't nothing. What if 2 stand up to us? He's like, that ain't nothing. Well, if they all stand up to us, then we got a problem because we're outnumbered. So the people, only 1 or 2 people or even 1,000 people, that ain't enough. You need millions of people. The people are too busy watching their football. I don't know if you're familiar with Jordan Maxwell. He always brought up the admiralty law component of our system's all based on the court's just really a bank, and they just want to take your money. They want to parasite off your money that you earned in the system to siphon off of it. So.
Exactly. I mean, Jordan Maxwell is, I've been listening to him probably since 92, 93.
Wow. You've been listening. That's when I was born. Wow. Okay. So you've been listening.
Yeah, a long time. He passed away, but
he only passed away about 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, his old stuff I was listening to, like, Millennium 2000 with Anthony Hill and all them. Old, way back in the day, I started listening to him. But, you're right, brother. But like my brother Marco Power in the chat said, the more of us that show up, the less likely for us to fall a victim. The more of us show up, like if just say if you're in court for whatever and none of your family members is there, you know what's going to happen?
Railroaded.
You're going to get railroaded because you don't have any support. No support. But if you got your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, aunties, and friends, they're all there on that defendant side. Look, again, it's a difference between giving justice and serving justice. I mean, we're going to have to do something.
We have to do
Because
something, but I mean, good luck. I mean, people, it's like I used to have a YouTube channel, but it falls on deaf ears. I only had 500 subscribers. I was on YouTube for years, but when I was in the military, I didn't show my face because that causes problems. They can try to reprimand you for speaking out against the government. So then when I got out, I showed my face, but then I was still realizing it's falling on deaf ears. And the YouTube shadow banned me. So I was like, okay, I just gave up.
that's a big club right there, brother. That's a large club. The shadow banning club, that's a large club. Whenever you're speaking truth to power, either they'll try to threaten you or they'll straight up hide you in the algorithm. That's what they would do to you. They'll hide you because they don't want what you're saying, especially someone who's been there and done that as far as being in the military or a former cop or something like that. Let me tell you something. Those are the worst people. They're the ones that you really don't like because they know emphatically what goes on. They can reveal a whole lot.
They know the actual procedures. If they like there was a cop that he was a white police officer in the 90s. He revealed that the government was I think it was named Mike Rupert. He revealed the police in LA were shipping in the drugs, and he was totally blacklisted by the media and all this stuff. He eventually committed suicide because of depression or whatever. But he exposed the government was shipping in the drugs.
Do you remember a few years ago the cop who was set to testify against LAPD? He ended up being killed a few years ago. He ended up being killed.
Well, I didn't hear about
none
that one.
And none of their backup showed up. I think they set him up to be killed. None of the backup showed up, and he was killed a day before he was supposed to testify and blow the whistle on the executioners under Alex Villanueva. They murdered him. So they don't even care about their own. And if you go according to departmental policy and not listen to your FTO, you're going to be seen as a bad seed in trouble, and you'll be ostracized. That's what they'll do to you as a cop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to toe the line or you're going to be dealt with.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my brother, I appreciate you for coming up. I want to land this plane right here.
All right, man.
And
talk to you later.
Feel free anytime, brother.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Peace. I want to thank everyone for joining me this evening for this stream of corrupt to the core mayors, police, judges, prosecutors, city council. We're going to keep it going because we have to expose these demons for who they are, because they call themselves public servants and they want to be seen as these noble, benevolent people when they don't do no acts of benevolence or noble acts. And we need to just continuously expose them. And we also need, like as I said earlier, we need to bridge the gap and come together and close our ranks. Brothers don't need, we should not be going after and against each other. We shouldn't go against each other. We should stand with our brothers, especially, I can understand if this brother is serving to our detriment as a people, then that's different. That's different. Yet, we should stand with our people. I want to thank everyone for joining me this evening. Armchair Revolutionary, Marco Power, P. Moses, Cuban Crisis, my brother, my comrade, Talk Your Talk Media, Bronze Flat Power God, Charles Johnson. Let me see, Big Dog, Philly OG, Copper Goddess. My brother, the realist McCoy, thank you for joining me. Hurricane JW, Charles Johnson, Hurricane JW, YJ the author, my brother Juan Truth, brother Master of Self, my brother Shank Rock, the sister Owlette, my brother Executive Sessions, my brother Wild Savage, my brother Drake Hobbs Music. Thank you all for joining me this evening. Thank my wife for joining me. She's always watching. And till next time, this is your brother Nasir, and this is The Enemy's Public. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.